All right, I'm going to attempt to install an Atomic X Var binding, which I've only done a few times, but as far as I can tell, there's no videos on this, and it's even hard to get information online. I do have this step-by-step instruction sheet that came with a new set of bindings that I just got, which I did not have before and would have been very useful instead of having to reverse engineer some installed bindings. One thing to note, I don't know whether this is optional or not, but there are two basic settings that you could put this front receptor plate on. So there's two screws that match to this right here. You could do here or here. These other skis I have in this front screw, but according to this, it is hard to see, but they've highlighted the holes in red that correspond to this position here. Once these are on, these bindings are adjustable. But I could imagine that if you have a very large boot or you want to set your binding further forward, you could use this setting. For now, I'm going to go with what it recommends. So I've got my appropriate screwdriver for bindings. I'm just gonna back these out a little bit. And hand screw these in. Hopefully I don't mess up my tripod in this process. Actually, I'm gonna got it in an awkward position. I'm gonna pause this and just do it and then resume. All right, got my front plate screwed in. Now here's the rear plate. And examining the directions shows you how to attach the brake to the plate itself, and then where to put the screws. And this brake has a little slot that goes in like this, and then on the front, these little tabs snap in so you can see it fits together. And as for corresponding position, it shows it's sort of unclear, to be honest. If you base it on the positioning of the binding in the image, it's going to be right here. What I find interesting too, by the way, I didn't point this out, but you can very faintly on this plate see some slight outlines right there, there, and then in the front, another ski here. In the front, see that? See those little circles right there? And what I suspect is this is if you want to drill in a marker style binding, which is the new basically hole pattern that Atomic is using from 2025 on for their icon bindings. And I think that this plate was anticipation of if you had the icon bindings and you wanted to essentially drill. But I don't know. Anyway, so I've got my brake attached here, and I am going to screw in as such these two parts. So again, I'm going to pause. All right, we're all bolted in here. Okay, brake is actively working. Now, next step is to install the binding. I mean, as I said, these kind of become like system bindings, and once these plates are in, you can adjust them to different boot sizes. There's a little release point, like a system binding, that allows you to slide this in. Shows you sliding it in. There's our little release point. And you slide it in here. So basically, going to push that in. And it locks itself. All right. Ta-da. Okay. Also, you'll notice, like a system binding, that there are little markers for the millimeter side of the boot. So your range here, 325, 335, 345. And when we get this plate in, this basically you line this up, and this little arm that's attached to the rear will end right at whatever millimeter size that you're aiming for. So all you do is slide this underneath your brake. Oh, here's a illustration of how you line that up. And that also, of course, tells you to lock that front piece. And then essentially we're sliding it in and matching it to the millimeter on the boot, which I already happen to know for my son is going to be the 315. So basically sliding it in from the rear here. You need to kind of lift this up at some point because you don't want to go underneath this one. You want to go over, and then it'll start to catch on that screw as well. So right there, and then you line up that hole like so. See? Fits in, and that's pretty much locked together. So the next part is the easiest part. You take this little piece, and this screw goes into that hole that we matched up. There's a little tab that goes underneath here. I'd already taken it off on this one so that I could remind myself of what the setting was. And then it's a relatively shallow screw. You just screw this baby in. And like any binding, you want to adjust your DIN settings here and in the rear, and then the micro adjustment for forward and reverse so that we can get this tightly fixed around his boot. And that's it. I hope you found this at all useful because, again, the first time I had to deal with this, I had to reverse engineer some used skis I bought and try and figure out how to get stuff off, and it was kind of challenging. Anyway, so screenshot this, probably more useful even than my walkthrough.